hope you enjoyed watching our travels in Iceland. I decided to end this video with some different tips and recommendations about traveling in Iceland. I do feel like Iceland is one of those countries that requires quite a bit of planning beforehand. Personally, for me, there are some small things that I would do a little bit differently if I had to do it again. So I want to pass on my learnings to you, and hopefully you can have the best trip possible in Iceland if you're thinking of going yourself. So without further ado, let's get started on my first piece of advice. A lot of people recommend that you go visit the Golden Circle for good reason, because it is really close by Reykjavik airport and quite easy to visit, I suppose, if you don't have a lot of time in Iceland. But that is exactly my point here. I personally feel that if you are visiting Iceland for just a few days, then yes, by all means, visit the Golden Circle. However, if you are going to be in Iceland for longer than a few days like us, I personally felt that all the scenery and all the things that we saw during the Golden Circle route, we were able to see the same things, but exponentially better later on in our trip. The Golden Circle is a really highly frequented route, and as a result of that, it's a very polished place. So I didn't really feel like I was getting to the true essence of Iceland, if that makes sense. You would have seen that on day one, while we were visiting the Golden Circle route, we stopped by the Gullfoss waterfall. At the time, we were like, wow, what an amazing waterfall. It's so beautiful. It's magnificent. But later on in the trip, we saw some incredible waterfalls, arguably much nicer, much more impressive than the Gullfoss waterfall. The next thing I want to talk about is campervan companies. So as you saw, we went with a company called Go Campers, which is a highly rated company, and that's why we chose them. But there are lots and lots of other campervan companies that you can choose from. It can be a little bit overwhelming when deciding which campervan company to go with. Of course, the first thing I'd recommend you do is read the Google reviews. I think that's an obvious one. But beyond that, I would recommend you take a closer look at the different offerings of each campervan company, because they do differ. And sometimes the price for one campervan company might seem a lot cheaper, but actually you need to factor in what is already included in the van. Because for some companies, that price includes already chairs and tables, whereas other companies will charge you additional money for all those extra things. Some companies are actually based quite geographically close to the airport, so therefore those companies are more likely to offer free airport pickup and also free airport drop-off at the end of your trip. Whereas other companies like Go Campers, the company that we went with, they are located a little bit further away from the airport. Therefore, they actually charged us money to drop us back off at the airport. I would recommend that you book your campervan as soon as possible, because they get booked out really quickly, especially if you're traveling during a peak season like us. This is something that we had personal experience with, because halfway through our planning, we actually wanted to change campervan companies. We wanted to go with Happy Campers, but we weren't able to do so because all the campervans were booked out by then. Looking back, that's something I would have done differently, because almost all campervan companies offer really good cancellation policies. They allow you to cancel within 24 hours of your pickup date. So there's literally no risk in booking a campervan early. The final thing that I would recommend is to please buy gravel insurance when you are picking up your campervan. This is so important, and so little money to pay for the peace of mind and the high probability that you will need to use the gravel insurance. So case in point, during our trip, on our very last day, we were driving along a highway and this huge truck drove past us, and the force of the truck caused a lot of the gravel to hit the windshield of our campervan. So the glass on the windshield cracked from the force of the gravel hitting it. And thankfully we bought gravel insurance, because the cost of having to repair the windshield damage is a lot of money. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is what to pack during summer. Summer in Iceland is totally different from summer in Spain or Italy or even in the Netherlands. It's really quite cold there, and everything that I wore during my trip in Iceland was what I would wear every day during winter in the Netherlands. That's how cold it is. So if you are also planning to visit Iceland during summer like us, I would definitely pack a beanie, gloves, hiking shoes, because you will be doing a lot of walking and hiking, a down jacket to insulate yourself, windproof rain jacket, hiking pants that are also rainproof and water resistant, thermal tops and thermal leggings, swimsuit because there's lots of geothermal hot springs and you want to definitely take advantage of those. They're amazing. So yeah, pack a swimsuit or maybe even two. I would also pack some thongs. I don't mean G-strings. I mean pack a pair of flip-flops. That's the Australian word for flip-flops, thongs. I would also, of course, pack a scarf. In terms of items, I would pack an eye mask because the sun doesn't set for a long time and you want to be able to sleep. And there are curtains in the camper van, but a lot of light will still filter through. So you definitely need that. A thermos bottle is really recommended. Any medication that you think you might need during your ring road trip, there's not going to be really that many pharmacies within driving distance. I caught a cold during the trip and we had to drive for ages to get to a pharmacy. So luckily I had kind of all the basic medicines that I needed in order to have a good night of sleep still and get through my day. Also keep in mind that some medicines that might be easy to get in your home country might be quite difficult to get without a prescription in Iceland. So for instance, I ran out of my cold and flu medicine and we came across a pharmacy and I asked to get some kind of cold and flu medicine and they basically said no, you need a prescription for that, and the only thing that they could offer me was some nasal spray. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The rules are different when it comes to medication in different countries. The other thing that really came in handy were microfiber towels. So we just bought ours from Decathlon. When you're camper vanning or if you're camping, you are obviously going to need a towel to dry yourself off with. This is one of the best things that we took with us because they just dry off so quickly compared to a normal towel. Final thing I recommend, which I actually forgot to take myself, was a waterproof phone case bag thing. So this is an example of what I mean. Chances are during your Iceland trip, you're going to want to go to some hot springs and chances are you're going to want to take some photos. You'll maybe want to take some videos for your Instagram or to show your family and your friends, but it is quite risky to take your phone into a hot spring. There's no easy place to store your phone nearby. If you take one of these waterproof phone cases, then you can basically take your phone with you, not damage your phone, take as many videos and photos as you want. And that's the only reason why I was able to share so much footage of myself in the hot springs, because I had this waterproof phone case with me and I knew that my phone was not going to get damaged. The other thing I want to talk about is campsites. Some campsites just have better facilities than others, and your goal is to of course try and find a campsite that has the best possible facilities that meets your needs. So the things that we really looked out for in campsites were hot showers, because believe it or not every campsite offers this. And also kitchen facilities as well. If you saw part 1 of my vlog, then you would have seen that our first campsite didn't have any kitchen facilities, so we had to cook our dinner via a camping stove. If the weather had been better, then this would have been totally fine, but it was a very cold, windy day that day. Not being able to cook our dinner in an indoor space and eat our food in an indoor space kind of made things really tough for us. Then we stayed in a much nicer campsite called Spinnafell campsite, which was in the Skaftafell area, and that was just a complete opposite experience. We had great hot showers, enough bathroom facilities for a large group of people, so I didn't have to wait long to take a shower, which is sometimes the case in other campsites. And it also had an indoor kitchen facility which allowed us to cook our food indoors on a stovetop. They had a kettle, so we didn't waste time boiling water over a camp stove. We could eat indoors when the weather was bad outside. Being able to stay in a campsite like that with such good facilities made all the difference, and that's why we decided to stay there for 2 nights rather than the 1 night we initially planned. The other thing to note with campsites is that you should still double check whether you need to book a campsite in advance before rocking up. Most of the time for campsites in Iceland, you do not need to book in advance. But funnily enough, on one of our last days in Iceland, there was a campsite that we had picked and decided to stay at. And then when we turned up, they said that we had to book in advance in order to stay at the campsite. Luckily, we had a lot of other backup options available, so we were able to find an alternative campsite pretty quickly nearby. Have a few different backup options in advance so that you're not left scrambling late at night when all you want to do is take a shower, eat your dinner, go to bed. I guess my final piece of advice is that if you are thinking of visiting Iceland, please just do it, because it is such an incredible country. Iceland was a bucket list trip for Gustavo and I, and we absolutely loved our time there. It is a country like none other. The landscape is incredible. It's a life-changing trip, and it really humbles you as well. And also keep in mind that if campervanning is not the right option for you, it's perfectly fine to also stay in hotels or in other more traditional forms of accommodation. We have friends who did that and they also had an amazing time. So campervanning is certainly not the only way to do it, but it will save you quite a lot of money, and it also offers you a lot of flexibility as well while traveling. If you enjoyed this video, and if you found the tips helpful, then please give this video a thumbs up. Please hit the subscribe button down below as well, because I make a lot of different travel videos. I also make a lot of videos about my expat life in Amsterdam if you're interested in that as well. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!